The shimmering lights of Seoul reflected on the windows of the Grand Hotel Shla, where the city's elite gathered for the launch ceremony of a new Han Corporation project. The gala hall, lined with silk tapestries and lit by imported crystal chandeliers, exuded power and wealth. Every guest, dressed in designer gowns and custom-tailored suits, spoke in low tones, afraid to break the air of importance that floated over the room. At the center of the hall, the Han family sat at the main table like royalty. Han Du-hyun, the patriarch, wore a perfectly cut suit. His presence, even in silence, demanded respect. Beside him, his wife Park Mi-kyung displayed a pearl necklace that caught the spotlight, her expression carefully crafted to project superiority. To the right, the youngest daughter, Han Sua, looked like she had stepped out of a fashion magazine. A sparkling gold gown, hair pulled into a flawless bun, and a practiced smile meant to charm. And then, almost hidden at the far end of the table, sat Han Jun, the eldest daughter. She wore a simple navy blue dress, chosen more for its discretion than for style. Her hair fell naturally over her shoulders, and her hands nervously clasped in her lap betrayed the anxiety she tried to hide. As on so many other occasions, she felt her presence was tolerated only out of obligation. As waiters moved silently, serving glasses of French champagne, Du-hyun rose with the ease of a man used to being heard. The room's quiet murmur stopped instantly. He lifted his glass, his gaze sweeping over the guests with almost arrogant confidence. Tonight, we celebrate not only a new milestone for Han Corporation, but also the new era our family is ready to lead. The audience answered with restrained applause. Ji-yoon's heart raced, dreading what was coming next. Du-hyun continued, his voice as firm as steel. I am proud to announce that my daughter, Han Sua, will officially be the successor to all our family's businesses. She represents the strength, vision, and talent our name demands. Applause exploded through the hall. Camera flashes lit up Sua's radiant face as she stood with a triumphant smile. Guests approached to congratulate her, raising their glasses in a toast. Ji-yoon remained frozen, feeling as if the ground beneath her feet was quietly breaking apart. Mi-kyung, the mother, leaned slightly to whisper, but her voice was loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Of course, we always knew who would truly bring pride to our family. Some guests exchanged awkward glances. Others, barely hiding their curiosity, watched Ji-won with almost cruel interest. Ua, noticing the attention on her older sister, decided to strike the final blow. She approached with the same radiant smile she had shown the photographers. Ani, she said sweetly, using the Korean word for older sister, don't be sad. Not everyone is born to carry the weight of the Han name. Someone has to shine, and that someone is me. Quiet laughter spread around the table. Ji-yoon felt her face burn, her hands trembling with shame. She tried to speak, but the words died in her throat. The weight of the stairs, the harsh light of the flashes, and the sound of the laughter swirled together like a storm that seemed to crush her. The dinner went on, but for Ji-yoon the room had become unbreathable. Each toast to the new heir was a cruel reminder of her invisibility. The sound of cutlery striking porcelain seemed to mock her helplessness. In that moment, among crystal glasses and hollow applause, a scar began to form in her heart. A mark that, one day, would change the destiny of the entire family. The soft sound of the string quartet echoed through the Shilla Hotel ballroom, but to Han Jun each note felt like a blow to her chest. The announcement that her sister, Han Sua, would inherit the family empire was already enough to expose her as a disposable piece. Now, however, the real wound was about to be opened in front of everyone. While the guests toasted the news, Sua moved among the tables like a freshly crowned star. Her golden dress caught the chandelier light, and the clinking of her glass drew admiring glances. Ji-yoon, seated at the far end, tried to disappear. Her cold fingers gripped the napkin as if that small piece of fabric were her only anchor. Mi-kyung, their mother, noticed and smiled with a hint of disdain. She leaned toward the socialite on her right and said, loud enough for half the table to hear, "It is a shame that not everyone in our family knows how to carry the Han name with dignity." The comment fell like a spark into the sudden silence. Some guests hid their discomfort behind a sip of champagne. Others exchanged knowing glances, as if expecting more. Sua seized the moment. She walked toward her sister with light steps, the sound of her heels echoing on the polished marble. She stopped beside Ji-yoon, bending slightly as if offering a toast, but her eyes gleamed with malice. "Ani," she said in a voice of forced sweetness, using the Korean word for older sister, "don't worry. No one here expects you to understand business. You've always been, let's say, Good at staying in the shadows. A quiet laugh escaped from one of the young businessmen nearby. SOA continued, now loud enough for more people to hear. In fact, it's better this way. Everyone has their place. Mine is here, shining. Yours, she lifted her glass, is backstage, where no one needs to notice. The circle of guests tightened around the sisters. Whispers spread like fire. Ji-yoon felt her face burn. Her vision blurred, unsure if it was from the tears she struggled to hold back or from the shame that burned her skin. She wanted to respond, but her throat felt like stone. Across the table, Hongdae, their father, simply tilted his head in an almost imperceptible gesture. Silent approval of the younger daughter's provocation. It was the confirmation that this scene was no accident. It was a ritual, a public lesson in who mattered in the Han family. Triumphant, Sua lightly touched her glass to Ji-yoon's, as if sealing an invisible pact. I hope you don't take it personally, Ani. Some of us were simply born to shine. The crystal chime of the toast echoed like a shard piercing Ji-yoon's chest. She couldn't move. Every look of pity or amusement from the guests seemed to carve into her memory the word no one dared to say aloud. Failure. On stage, the string quartet resumed a delicate waltz as if nothing had happened. But for June, the melody turned to mockery. Every note was a cruel reminder that, before all of Seoul, she had been humiliated. Not by strangers, but by those who should have protected her. When she finally managed to stand, her legs trembled as if the floor had lost its firmness. She walked out of the ballroom without looking back. With every step, she felt the weight of shame and anger growing inside her. And in the cold Gangnam night, a silent promise formed in her heart. They will regret this, and when that day comes, it will be impossible to ignore the one they always despised. Dawn settled over Itaewon with a cold wind sweeping through the narrow streets, carrying the distant scent of street food mixed with damp earth. On the quiet hill above, the Han family mansion glowed like a beacon of luxury. But for Han June that light brought no comfort. It was only a cruel reminder of the place where she no longer belonged. The car that had brought her from the Shilla Hotel stopped at the Iron Gate. The driver, silent and uneasy, simply bowed his head. Ji-yoon stepped out, her navy blue dress still damp from the drizzle. Every step through the perfect garden echoed like a reminder of humiliation. Behind the windows, the lights of the house revealed moving silhouettes. Her family was waiting. As she crossed the main door, a tense silence greeted her. In the living room, decorated with black marble and European paintings, her parents stood as if ready to pass judgment. Han Du-hyun, the patriarch, had his arms crossed, his gaze cold as steel. Park Mi-kyung, elegant in a wine-colored silk robe, didn't bother to hide her look of disapproval. Han Sua sat on the sofa, still in her golden party dress, wearing a faint smile that mixed triumph and contempt. A shiver ran down Ji-yoon's spine. The silence was so heavy that the ticking of the wall clock sounded like thunder. Finally, Do-hyun broke the stillness. You managed to shame our family tonight. His voice wasn't a shout, but a cut. Ji-yoon took a deep breath, trying to keep her hands from shaking. Appa, I didn't silence. The interruption came sharp. Your very presence has been a mistake. For years, we tried to find a use for you, but it's clear you were never born to carry the Han name. Mi-kyung stepped forward, her heels striking the marble with purpose. While Sua shines, you merely take up space. She lifted her chin, her eyes glinting with ice. Tonight's party made that clear. There's no point pretending anymore. Ji-yoon felt her throat tighten. The air seemed thin. She wanted to explain that she never sought rivalry, that she only wanted to be accepted. But the words died as Sua rose, adjusting her bun with practiced grace. "Ne," she said softly, her voice laced with venom. You must understand that not everyone is born for the same greatness. Perhaps it's time to find a place that suits you. Far from here, Ji-yoon's heart pounded. She stepped back, as if the force of the words had struck her. Do-hyun walked to the coffee table and picked up a thick envelope. He tossed it at his daughter's feet. Here is enough for you to support yourself. For a while, consider it a final favor. By tomorrow morning, I want you out of this house. The dull slap of the envelope on the marble floor sounded like a sentence. Ji-yoon looked at the money, then at their faces. No trace of regret, only the cold precision of people signing a contract. The tears she had tried to hold back burned hot against her cold skin. She stepped forward, her voice trembling. You're my family. How can you throw me out like this? Mi-kyung crossed her arms, her face unmoved. Family, she repeated with a frozen smile. The Han family is made of winners, not deadweight. Isue tilted her head, as if savoring the scene. Accept it, Ani. It's better for everyone. Ji-yoon felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The room that once felt like home now seemed like a hostile courtroom. Every painting, every chandelier, every piece of luxury was a cruel reminder that she had never truly belonged. She bent down and picked up the envelope with trembling hands. The paper felt cold, almost sharp. Slowly, she straightened, looking at each of them. Her father with eyes of steel, her mother with a stone-cold smile, her sister with triumph in her gaze. And something inside her changed. "You will remember this moment," she whispered, her voice low but firm. Without waiting for an answer, she turned on her heels and walked to the door. The sound of her heels echoed across the marble, a solitary sound marking the end of an era. Outside, the rain began again. As she passed through the gate, the cold wind cut her face, but behind the pain, a spark of determination lit inside her. On that early morning in Itaewon, the humiliated daughter began, without knowing, to write the turn of events that would one day shock them all. Seoul's early morning was cold and damp as Han-joon left the iron gates of the Itaewon mansion behind. The wind sweeping through the quiet avenues carried the distant smell of street food, and the neon lights that, far away, seemed to mock her loneliness. She held the envelope of money tight against her chest like a cruel reminder, not of love, but of rejection. With no clear destination, she caught the first night bus toward Hongdae, the neighborhood known for its bohemian life where 24-hour street artists and university students turned the late hours into a mosaic of music and color. The bus rocked gently along the wet streets, and Ji-yoon, leaning against the window, watched the pale reflection of her face in the fogged glass. Every raindrop sliding down the window matched the silent tears on her cheeks. When she got off in front of Hongdae University Station, the neighborhood buzzed even at that late hour. Food stalls steamed with the spicy scent of tteokbokki. Street musicians played guitars under makeshift awnings, and groups of young people laughed loudly, unaware of the pain June carried. She walked with her small suitcase and heavy heart, feeling invisible in the middle of that vibrant energy. She found a small room for rent in the back of an alley near the Hongdae playground, a simple space with peeling walls, and a thin mattress on worn wooden floors. The owner, an elderly woman named Madame Lee Hyun, looked at Ji-yoon with a mix of curiosity and compassion but asked no questions. She handed her the key and simply said, "Here no one asks where you came from, but everyone fights for where they want to go." Ji-yoon nodded silently. Closing the door behind her, the solitude of the tiny room wrapped around her. The distant sound of street music blended with the fast rhythm of her heartbeat. She dropped the suitcase to the floor and sat on the mattress, letting the tears finally flow without resistance. For the first time in years, there was no one to judge her, but the absence of a friendly voice hurt even more. In the following days, Ji-yoon began to adapt to her new routine. In the mornings, she walked through the streets of Hongdae, taking in colorful graffiti and small filled with young artists. At night, she took odd jobs, washing dishes at a barbecue restaurant in Yeonnam-dong, serving coffee at a kiosk near Hongdae University Station, and sometimes helping street musicians set up equipment in exchange for a few won. Each task, no matter how humble, gave her a sense of dignity she had never received from her family. Despite the hardship, something inside her began to change. Amid Hongdae's bohemian chaos, Ji-yoon discovered a different rhythm, the sound of autotune guitars mixed with the laughter of strangers, the smell of fried chicken and strong coffee, the unexpected warmth of a community that, without knowing it, offered her a home. Here, no one cared about the name Han or the corporate empire she had left behind. To these people, Ji-yoon was just another young woman trying to find her place. On sleepless nights, she walked to Hongdae Playground, where performers danced K-pop routines under the streetlights. She sat on one of the concrete benches, watching the flow of strangers. Under the clouded sky, she thought of her parents and sisters cutting words. The pain still pulsed, but amid the anonymous crowd, a new strength began to grow, quiet, yet firm. One early morning, while watching a group of hip-hop dancers, Ji-yoon realized that, for the first time, she wasn't crying. The cold wind brushed her face, but inside her, a spark of hope lit. This wasn't just survival. It was the beginning of something she couldn't yet name. That night, beneath Hongdae's neon lights, Han-joon, the humiliated daughter, unknowingly began to trace the path that would one day make her entire family beg for the recognition they had once denied her. On a rainy late afternoon in Gangnam, Ji-yoon sheltered in a small cafe near Sinsa Station, warming her hands around a mug of cheap coffee. The world around her seemed indifferent to her pain. hurried executives, laughing students. The city kept spinning as if nothing had happened. Then a man in a dark suit, his umbrella soaked, walked in. Park Geneseo, a young lawyer known for taking on powerful conglomerates. He noticed Ji-yoon's expression, her simple clothes contrasting with her naturally elegant posture. Something in her quiet fragility caught his attention. Geneseo approached with uncommon gentleness. "Looks like this day hasn't been easy for you either." The sentence, spoken without judgment, broke the silence Ji-yoon had carried since her expulsion. For the first time in weeks, she felt someone saw more than a rejected family name. Geneseo offered practical help, job leads, a contact for night classes. But above all, he gave her a look of respect. In that casual encounter, the first spark of change was born. An unexpected ally, who would open the door to the humiliated daughter's rebuilding. With Park Geun-seo's first pieces of advice, Ji-yoon began to rebuild her life. He introduced her to a small evening business course at Yonsei University, where she spent hours in libraries lit only by the glow of computer screens. During the day, she found a basic internship at a young sustainable tech startup in Mapojiu, helping with administrative tasks. Among spreadsheets and conversations with coworkers who called her by her first name, not by the Han family name, Ji-yoon felt for the first time that her worth did not depend on her family. Each successful project, each late night of study, sparked a new confidence inside her. The bohemian neighborhood of Hongdae, once a refuge for pain, was now becoming a stage for rebirth. Walking among the colorful murals, she realized that the wound of humiliation hadn't disappeared, but it no longer defined who she was. Ji-yoon was finally building her own identity, and for the first time, the future felt open and truly hers. Years passed almost without Ji-yoon noticing. The internship in Mapojiu turned into a permanent job, and, before long, she was leading small sustainable technology projects that caught the attention of investors. With the quiet support of Park Geneseo, now her closest friend, Ji-yoon learned how to negotiate, present plans, and build alliances. When the startup moved into the Gangnam Finance Tower, she had already become a key name in eco-friendly solutions for major companies. Business magazines ran headlines about a young visionary leader, but Ji-yoon avoided the spotlight, preferring to let her work speak for itself. Meanwhile, corruption scandals began to surround the Han Corporation. From the top of her new office, overlooking the Han River, Ji-yoon followed the news in silence. The world that had once humiliated her was about to collapse, and no one suspected that the rejected daughter had become one of the most influential figures in Seoul. From her new office high in the Gangnam Finance Tower, Ji-yoon followed each headline like someone watching a line of dominoes fall. The Han Corporation empire, which for decades had made the family name a symbol of power, now appeared on newspaper covers, not for achievements, but for scandals. First came the accusations of inflated costs in a major urban project in Songpaji. A consortium of investigative journalists revealed internal documents showing suspicious payments to local politicians. Within days, the press in Jongno and TV news repeated the same words. Corruption, fraud, money laundering. The image of Han Do-hyun, once admired as a model tycoon, turned into a symbol of unchecked greed. Soon after, a leaked financial report exposed a string of shady loans that had kept the company artificially afloat. International investors pulled their money out in droves. Han Corporation's stock price collapsed within weeks. For Park Mi-kyung, long accustomed to shining at gala dinners, the downfall was a wound to her pride. Invitations to exclusive events disappeared. Former friends from high society stopped returning her calls. Mi-kyung, who had so often humiliated Ji-yoon for not representing the family, now avoided leaving home to escape the reporters' flashbulbs. Han Sua, the daughter who had always been the family's trophy, became a favorite target of the tabloids. Her personal luxury fashion investments proved to be a financial disaster. Boutiques in Apgujeong began canceling contracts, and former partners sued her for breach of agreements. The young woman who once paraded as the family's golden star now faced headlines calling her lifestyle the most frivolous reflection of Han corruption. Ji-yoon watched it all in silence. There was no euphoria, no loud revenge. Only a sense of inevitability. At night, when the city of Seoul lit up like a sea of constellations, she walked across Banpo Bridge, remembering the night she had been thrown out in the rain. The cold wind struck her face, but now there were no tears, only the certainty that fate had revealed who the Hans truly were. In Hongdae, young people discussed the scandal as if retelling a drama. Some didn't even know that the successful woman leading the eco-startup, Ji-yoon herself, was the rejected daughter of the fallen clan. She preferred it that way, invisible to the press, yet increasingly central to the city's future. When one of the biggest business newspapers announced that a new anonymous investor had taken over key projects once controlled by Han Corporation, Geneseo looked at Jiwoon and simply smiled. She didn't need to say a word. The same young woman once humiliated in public was now a key player in the economic rebuilding that the desperate Han family no longer knew how to lead. The downfall, which began as a rumor, had become complete collapse. And somewhere between the memory of her pain and the calm of the present, Jiwoon understood. The humiliation she had suffered had quietly become the path to victory. Morning broke over Seoul with a clear sky after weeks of heavy clouds, as if the city itself was announcing a new chapter. Inside the vast COEX Convention Center, journalists and business leaders crowded together for the press conference that promised to reveal the new investor behind the capital S most ambitious urban revitalization project. Cameras flashed, microphones fought for space. No one wanted to miss the moment when the future of the city would be rewritten. Among the audience, the few remaining members of the once mighty Han family appeared quiet and almost unrecognizable. Han Do-hyun, his suit wrinkled in dark circles under his eyes, tried to hold a firm posture, but his sleepless nights showed. Park Mi-kyung, once always draped in glittering jewelry, now wore a simple gray suit, her lips pressed in tension. Han Sua, once called the Princess of Apgujeong, hid behind dark sunglasses, afraid of the flashes that would capture her fall. A buzz swept through the hall when the host announced the arrival of the mysterious investor. Glass doors opened, and the sound of heels on the floor echoed across the room. Everyone turned. An elegant figure appeared. Han Juntime had given her a new presence. She wore a flawless white suit, her hair pulled back in a simple, sophisticated bun. The face that once showed insecurity now carried a calm, almost unshakable balance. Flashes fired in quick succession. Journalists whispered her name, some stunned as they realized her connection to the Han family. Gi-yoon walked to the podium with steady steps, feeling the weight of every gaze. At her side, Park Geneseo, now a well-known lawyer, held a folder of documents. As she reached the microphone, the room fell silent. "Good morning, Seoul." Her voice, clear and firm, filled the hall. "It is an honor to present the new sustainable technology project that will lead the revitalization of our city. Starting today, my company takes charge of this future." Journalists exchanged startled looks. Some were already putting the pieces together. The daughter, once humiliated by the Han family, was now the main investor in the project that could either save or finally bury her parents' empire. Ji-yoon paused briefly and looked out over the audience. Her eyes met Do-hyun's, then Mi-kyung's, and finally her sister Sua's. No words of reproach left her lips. Only a calm, unreadable gaze. Mi-kyung lowered her head, unable to hold the eye contact. Ua bit her lower lip, her face pale beneath her makeup. For a moment, Do-hyun seemed about to speak, but the words died before reaching his throat. Geneseo sensed the moment and gently touched Jiwoon's shoulder, as if to confirm the victory was already complete. When the applause rolled through the hall, Jiwoon smiled, not out of revenge, but out of self-affirmation. The sound of camera flashes, which years earlier had marked her humiliation, now celebrated her rise. She needed no harsh words. Her very presence, standing at the center of the stage, was the ultimate answer. At that moment, before all of Seoul, it was clear. The daughter, who had once been humiliated, ignored, and cast out, had become the woman no one would ever dare underestimate. Night fell over Itaewon like a cloak of silence. The old Han mansion, once the stage for lavish dinners, now stood as a monument of shadows. The garden that had once welcomed politicians and tycoons was covered in dry leaves. The crystal lights of the entrance hall, now dark, reflected only the memory of a power that had faded away. Han Jun parked in front of the iron gate that had once seen her leave in rain and humiliation. The metallic creak of the hinges as it opened echoed like an inevitable return. She walked along the stone path, her heels striking in a slow rhythm, each step carrying years of wounds and triumphs. In the main hall, the scene was one of unexpected fragility. Han Do-hyun, once imposing, sat in a leather armchair, his body hunched, his hands clasped in nervous silence. Park Mi-kyung stood beside him, her eyes tired and red. The pearl necklace she had always worn had been replaced by a simple silver chain. Han Sua, the former golden princess, stared at the floor, her fingers trembling. For a moment, no one spoke. The ticking of the old wall clock marked each second, as if the house itself was struggling to breathe. Doohyun was the one to break the silence, his voice hoarse, like a man who had lost not only wealth but also his own certainty. When he began, hesitating, as if every word weighed a ton. We have come to ask for forgiveness. Mikyung lowered her head, quiet tears slipping down. We were blinded by pride. We thought wealth meant worth. But when everything collapsed, we realized that you were always the true strength of this family. Ua, her eyes wet, slowly lifted her face. Ani. I'm sorry. I was cruel. I wanted a shine I never deserved. Please, forgive me. Ji-yoon stood still, her arms relaxed at her sides. For a moment, her heart relived every wound. The laughter at the dinner table, the envelope thrown to the floor, the night of exile in Hongdae. She felt the old pain pulse again, but now it no longer controlled her. She stepped forward slowly. She looked at each of them, father, mother, sister, and saw not giants of power, but ordinary people, broken by their own greed. She took a deep breath. I did not come back to hurt you, she said, her voice firm but gentle. I came back to show that no one is measured by the name they carry or by the money they have. Hongdae raised his eyes, surprised by the calm she radiated. Ji-yoon continued. I forgive you, but forgiveness will not return what you lost on your own. That lesson belongs to you. A heavy silence filled the room. Mikyung sobbed softly. Sua covered her face with her hands. Doohyun bowed his head, accepting without protest. Ji-yoon then turned toward the door. Before leaving, she cast one last look at the mansion that had once been the symbol of her pain. The night wind of Seoul drifted through the open door, carrying the distant smell of street food and life moving on. As she walked to the car, Ji-yoon felt her heart grow light. It wasn't revenge that followed her, but a deep serenity. The cycle of humiliation was finally over. Fate, in the end, had shown that true triumph was not in destroying, but in forgiving. Outside, the lights of Seoul shone bright, reflected in the Han River, as if the whole city silently celebrated the victory of the woman who had once been humiliated.
Hey, did you like this story? Then hit subscribe to Between Lies and Love so you won't miss the next chapters. Don't forget to like this video. It really helps us bring you more emotional, anime-style K-drama stories. And I want to know, what was your favorite part of this story? What do you think we could do better in the next episodes? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and your idea might even show up in the next video. So subscribe, like, comment, and join this family that loves drama, twists, and unforgettable stories.